Your wants and your desires, if you're needing motivation to get through your want to do and I desire this list, then those wants and desires are likely not in alignment with what you really truly want, because you wouldn't be needing to motivate yourself to do those. You would intrinsically feel inspired to do it, and you would have a hard time not doing those before your priority or your should list.
Calling all professional neurodiverse mamas seeking to reclaim their time, energy, and focus. I have a special invitation for you. The Simplified Schedules Mini-Course will help you to uncover the top 3 things your neurodiverse brain needs to slay your day and reduce overwhelm instantly. This is the one mini course you need to get your life together without quitting your job or leaving your family. You'll also be able to leave this course with an actionable plan to create that flow and freedom you so desperately deserve. So if you're ready to learn, take action, and create flow, then you can learn more at thecharmedlife.me/simplified me. Make sure to download your copy, tell a sister friend, and I'll see you there. Welcome to We Ain't Normal. My name is Charmaine Fuller, and I'm an everyday mom sharing how I navigate my ADHD brain. Each week, we share tools, inspiration, and resources to help you uncover how to reclaim your time, energy, and focus. So thanks for hanging out with me today. Now on to our show. Hey, what's up, ladies? Welcome back to the We Ain't Normal show. I got to meet up with Janessa. Now, Janessa, if you have never followed her on social, I know she is. She has the Energy Hub. So it's a space for women that she has to help them step into their energetic power while feeling supported through all of the different options that we have as we begin to move into that space, into their journey of spiritual healing and manifestation. So I love what she does. Introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Charmaine, for that introduction. And you are not wrong. If you are unfamiliar with the name of my company and you're just stumbling across my pages for the first time, it does not read the Energy Hub at first glance. And because the first thing people always ask me is, how come NRG instead of just the Energy Hub? That is twofold, and I always think it's cute to just share it with you. So I'm going to take an extra second to do that. But honestly, I wanted the Energy Hub, but it's already owned, and it was for sale for about $18,000. And I was like, no.
That's a no.
So I typed in NRG, and it was available. And I kind of liked it, and I went ahead and scooped it up. And then I decided that the NRG could be a really neat acronym. And when I started off years and years ago, it was in the nutritional space, and the NRG used to stand for the nutritionally reclaimed generation. But as I've pivoted over the years, and this most recent and the most impactful and powerful and like really my passion project, it currently stands for neurological retrograde. And it's because I'm an astrologer as well. And retrograde, which we're actually in a Mercury retrograde right now. Yes. Retrograde literally means to go backwards or to rewind or to delete. And neurological retrograde is a term that they use for amnesia in general. So the NRG hub is the Energy Hub, and the NRG acronym is neurological retrograde, and it is the art of forgetting what we thought we knew. So I thought I would just put that there for you guys in case you're wondering, because the question does come up a lot, and I answer a lot of questions in the DMs about that. And about myself, I have found myself in the last year and a half or so really enjoying working with women who are struggling to find certain parts of themselves and really feel fulfilled in life. And we use a spiritual and energetic method, as well as a scientific neurological aspect of brain rewiring, with a whole bunch of other things mixed in there, to really help them reframe the way that they see themselves, the confidence they have in themselves, and their ability to really bring themselves into a place of observation about their life so that they can find a perspective of like true self-acceptance and just being present and in the moment and enjoying life. And that's about the most summarized that I could ever possibly get an introduction.
First of all, the energy is dope as hell. Oh
Thank you.
my gosh. Because again, retrograde is about that slowing down period or sitting still so you can get stuff back in order and just
Yeah.
kind of bringing things in just in order. And it's like, oh my God, that's so dope. So first of all, I'm like, I wish you could see my face because I'm just gagged out by, like you were describing, I'm like, oh my God, that is like brilliant. So I'm going to stop fangirling over that for a minute because I'm kind of a nerd over those types of neural things. But that's an important space to be in. The space of helping specifically women to reclaim those areas because you're a mom like I'm a mom. And we both kind of touched on during our Connect call, how easy it is as a mom to get lost in momming and not stepping into the fullest version of you because, you know, you kind of always feel like there's something else for somebody else that needs to be done and managing all of that. And then if, you know, because you and I are both extra, we decided to sprinkle some neurodiversity of our own on top of that and trying to manage the sensory pieces of what we deal with on top of being a parent, on top of having a business, on top of life and wifing and all that other stuff is just, when you say it out loud, it sounds really crazy, but somehow if you're like me, there's a way that I organize it and stuff in my head that makes it works for me. How do you make it work for you?
Okay, well, let me preface that by saying that I can honestly say I haven't found anything that actually, quote unquote, works yet.
Right?
But I can absolutely give you a list of things that 100% did not work and a smaller list of things that I feel like are working more of the time to help me feel a little bit more empowered and in control and like I'm in the driver's seat and less hectic and less stressed out. The thing for me is that I'm always sort of evolving the way that I do things because I find that it doesn't even matter if you do have a family or not, but because we're, you know, in the context of being mothers and busy women and, you know, we have extra brains and like quote unquote extra brains. There's a lot going on up here. And if you and I are having this conversation, I'm going to assume that anyone listening to this is also going to be able to relate to this. But we're constantly changing all the time. There are cycles that we go through as women from an intrinsic physiological perspective that are always changing the way that we're experiencing life and our emotions and our capacity and our, you know, mental thought processes. And then there's also the more unseen, lesser talked about world as well, with like energetics and more metaphysical influences, you know, planetary movement and just lots of things we forget to give credit to that are also influencing some of those cycles that we go through from, you know, just experiencing the environment around us, whether we can see the cause or not. So for me, what I found was, you know, really trying to have like some sort of system that helps me manage it all, really set me up for a lot of failure because, you know, trying to hold yourself to these unrealistic standards for what you should get done in a day, in a week, in a month, what you want to get done in a day, in a week, in a month. It's just so unrealistic. And I honestly don't think that anyone can actually hold themselves to a set routine or a set schedule or anything like that without completely having to dishonor the energy or the feelings that they have on any given day. So for me, what I figured out was that I need to have like a loose guideline of the things I want to do. And then there's my priority list of the things that I have to do, whether I feel like it or not. And then I have to have a certain amount of leeway and forgiveness and recognition for what I'm actually capable of doing. And sometimes I'm capable of a lot more. And sometimes I can kind of fudge my way through it a little bit and still do most of it. And it might not feel 100% in alignment, but it's also not really going to take a whole lot out of me. And then there's certain times where like I can't keep up with anything that I really wanted to do or said I would do. So you've got to be able to have those like flexible moments in time where you can just slow down and give yourself the ability to reorganize and rejuggle and restructure anything in any given moment. So having that awareness helps me make those decisions and make that call in the moment without all of that extra mind chatter, like without beating myself up for having to move things across my to-do list again, without feeling the guilt or shame of actually having to say no to something, even if I've previously agreed to it, and just giving myself the flexibility and allowing myself to, in the moment, recognize that I'm experiencing an energetic or a mental strain on the load I've put on myself. And I'm the only one who can take things off of my list or add things onto my list. So then going ahead and doing that in the moment and being okay with it. But I think most people never give themselves the amount of time or give themselves the space to do that because they don't slow their brains down long enough to be mindful of not just everyone else's needs, but of their own as well. Like being mindful enough to bring your own needs into the mix in that moment. So I know that's kind of a long-winded way of saying just going
Child,
easy on yourself.
you
But that
gave
for
them,
me, that's the only way that I can do it.
but she gave y'all a full sermon in like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. She gave, okay, so let's break this down. The first piece is I don't, like I have a schedule, but like I always tell, like my schedule is it's a guideline, it's a framework.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be how my day goes. Like you said, there might be more energy for me to tackle some other things, but I've learned in setting that framework in order to bust down those false expectations that we often have. At max, I'll have in between 3 to 5 things on my schedule per day, if even. Max in between 3 to 5. And some days it's 1, depending on if I get up, and especially cycle energy will throw you for a loop because you're, depending on how your cycle runs, you could be extra drained, your brain can be mush. And so, yeah, my ego might love to get, I call it fast Charmaine, might love to get like 5 or 6 things done in that day because I feel like they need to get done or everything is going to fall apart. But Feely Charmaine is like, girl, your brain is mush. If you get one of them done today, you're winning. If you get one of them done today, you might not get one of them done today. This might be a day where you're just laying in bed, watching Netflix, eating snacks, and being okay with that. Like the part where you're like giving yourself the grace to be able to flow through life. And that is the hugest thing. That's one of the reoccurring themes that has been going on for this particular season, as we touch in on motivation, is that it's about the flow of it all. And it's about the awareness of it all, knowing what your body can do, knowing what your cycles are, knowing what your energy and that you're always evolving and being okay to give yourself that grace. That is a whole word.
Holy, yeah. You just said something. Well, you said a lot of things, but the word motivation really stood out to me, and I would love to elaborate on that if you're okay passing the
Please, let's
floor back
do.
over.
Yes, let's do
So,
that.
one of the things that I find is really challenging is to always be able to tap into this feeling of motivation in order to work through your list of things that you want to do, have to do, should do. And what I have found over tons and tons of different iterations of me, trying to be quote unquote like put together is that motivation really isn't all that helpful because motivation for me always ends up coming from a fear-based mindset and from a sense of lack. When I want to feel motivated to do something, it's usually because something inside of me is feeling like I don't have enough, or I'm not being enough, or I'm not doing enough. So there's always this sense of not enoughness whenever motivation comes into the picture. So when you work on your mindfulness in general and you use the tools and you put some of those practices into place, I mean, there's a million out there, but for the most part, I think anyone will, anyone in a position of mindfulness authority, they'll tell you to start with meditation. And there's lots of other things that you can do, but meditation is a really, really good, easy one for everyone, as long as you find the right type of entry into meditation that works for you. And that's a completely other topic, and I won't go down it right now. But everybody has the ability to meditate, even if you've tried it before and it doesn't work for you, or even if you feel like it's not really your thing. There's always ways to tweak it. But if you can get yourself into a place of mindfulness and you can bring yourself back into the present moment and you look at all these different piles that you have going on, as busy working women and mothers, or anybody who has, a lot of obligations because they have a lot of responsibilities, really, there's a list of priorities that are, for the most part, non-negotiable. You might be able to juggle some things around, but you don't get to just cross that off. And that is just the reality of life, right? So obviously, the first thing you want to give your attention to is your priority list. And usually your priorities, they don't necessarily need a lot of motivation. There's not a whole lot of fear or not enough or lack going on there. These are responsibilities that you've taken on in life. This is feeding children, getting the garbage out on time, paying your bills, things like that, right? We don't really have a choice, because if you skip those things, the repercussions are very obvious. And most of us who are responsible adults, we don't need to be told to do those things. We don't have to find motivation to do those things, because eventually when the deadline comes up, you have to do it. And then there are the other plates where it's things you should do, maybe. It could be outside influence that is, fostering this should within you. It could also be inside influence that is igniting or fostering this sense of should or whatever. And then there's the list of your wants and the desires that you have. Your wants and your desires, if you're needing motivation to get through your want to do and I desire this list, then those wants and desires are likely not in alignment with what you really truly want, because you wouldn't be needing to motivate yourself to do those. You would intrinsically feel inspired to do it, and you would have a hard time not doing those before your priority or your should list. And as far as your should list goes, if you are struggling to find the motivation to work through those items on that list, chances are it's because that should really isn't coming from a place that can be directly tied or connected to what is truly in alignment with the things that you're trying to accomplish. These things are on your list for a reason. What is the overall goal that you're trying to get to? So the should list and the want list are pretty similar, but that's one thing I've noticed for myself. And I've brought this conversation into the work that I do with people. And from there, when you sort of walk someone through, why is this on your list? And you sort of get you peel back the layers where it's not just the surface level. Well, they invited me and I said yes. It's okay, but you said yes, but now you don't want to do it. Why are you afraid to cross this off? Is this in alignment with who you are? And you can pick those layers back, and anything that really is truly meant for you, you will intrinsically have inspiration that will not need a pep talk for you to take action on it. So if you're struggling to feel motivated, there's likely a reason behind why you're not inspired to do the thing. And identifying that will allow you to either cross things off your list or move them over to your priority list, because you should also be on your priority list too. And I think that's the biggest gap that we all find ourselves in, is we have this giant list of responsibilities, but how often are we on that list? So anything that you can find within yourself that really is coming from a place of inspiration needs to be moved over to your priority list, because you're a priority as well. So when I look at all of the stuff on my plate, I really try to reduce it down to that. And it really helps me cross things off, and it helps me postpone things, and it helps me bump things up. And that way I don't have to convince myself to do any of these, because my lists and my little plates or my little buckets are now more in alignment with everything I'm trying to do here.
But that comes back to the awareness part, right?
None of this happens without awareness.
Right. And so I want the listeners, though, this is when I tell you repetition, you're going to hear the same thing, because sometimes we need to hear it in different ways from different people. But the common thread is this awareness piece. And I know a lot of you don't like awareness. You just want to get in and think, I'm going to get things done. And, this is where I think I see the fire burning. So I'm going to get in, I'm going to start working on this. And then you keep finding yourself overwhelmed. You keep finding yourself in these same pockets of not being inspired or motivated to do anything. And you can't figure out why, because you have so many things to do. Awareness is the first step. Getting clear is the first step about what's going on. Where do you even want to go? Are the things that you're doing even in alignment with what you say or what you feel in your spirit are to be your next steps? And I know from personal experience and from working with women is that they all say they need to get their schedule organized, and they want to start at that piece. I don't know if you see that too. I need to get my schedule organized. Let me work with you on plugging in more shit to my day. Right. And it's like, no, this is not where we're starting. We're going to start with cleaning up where you are, because where you are is really oh my gosh. Awareness is everything, ladies, as you listen. In order for Janessa to be able to go through these pivots and finding out and knowing what's in alignment and knowing she has to be aware of what she wants, what her values are, what's going on, that this is just not something that you can sit and, what's the word? You can't just systematize this is really a feely type of exercise. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
This is really feely. This is not you getting a planner and checking off, boxes. And this is not analytical at all. And for somebody like me who is completely, because I'm all Capricorn, who is completely analytical, learning how to tap into my emotion, my intuition, my feelings has been a blessing and a challenge, right? Because I like schedules and check boxes, but I'm now beginning to learn how to work with and love that intuitive, emotional piece.
And you know what's funny? I'm sorry not to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
But I am very similar, but in the opposite way. Everything about what I do comes from this deep feeling place, where it's really easy for me to be thrown off if I'm not feeling it, or if I am feeling more inspired by something else. So I actually have to work much harder at the checklist version of systematizing these things. So there's a huge balance here, because like you said, you want to put everything into a box and check it off in order, on time, in a proper sequence. And you want to be able to see your progress get crossed off so that you can see where you're going. And I'm the total opposite. And I bet that if we had much longer to talk about this, we would probably be able to come to the conclusion or an agreeable place where just your systematized list and task-oriented action steps keeps you out of alignment of both like honoring the things that are true for you and also seeing success along the way as well. Yes. Whereas my old version of that as well, where I really didn't have any tangible like next steps or forward movement in place, or there was no tracking or no accountability on paper. where I was then holding myself in a place of wishing, wanting, and not being able to do. So I had to adopt more of this, more, uh, like masculine energy, like the left brain, the like task oriented essence. And I had to let my right brain kind of, let off the gas pedal a little bit, where I still want to be in tune with all of my creativity and all of my intuitive type information that I'm getting. But none of that works without the system in place. Just like the system itself doesn't work without bringing your intuition and your energetic body into it as well. So it's about blending both of those
Yes.
and holding yourself accountable without being rigid to change. And it's a really
Yes.
difficult balance.
It is. And I will tell you, I'm a lot less stressed now that I have bought the emotional piece in, because that analytical piece is very rigid. It's very black or white thinking. And it's stressful. Oh my gosh, it's stressful. And so I'm learning
Yeah.
how to use my superpower to benefit me versus stress me the F out all the time and looking for things to be perfect, right? Because when, we all, whether you're, whether you're emotionally minded or you're more analytical, we all have our versions of perfect, right? That we kind of aim to. But learning how to put those two together, oh my gosh, life has just been so much better now that I'm learning how to balance these girls out to play together versus, jock for position all the time.
Yeah, I know. And I'm never in a perfect place of balance every,
No,
like day after day after day.
no.
There are periods of time where I'm like, holy crap, I feel like I actually have a grasp on all of this. And then there's so many things that could come up that throw you off of that.
Yes.
And I've got to go get myself back in the driver's seat. And it does sort of need a little bit of like, you just hit that wall where you're like, okay, I got to get organized. And you get out the pen and paper, you get the notepad, you dump all your ideas out, you get the calendar. Usually when I end up feeling like that, when I get my calendar and look at it, I can go back and see like, oh, I haven't written anything in here for a number of days, so I've strayed from my system and I haven't taken the time to, meditate and have those mindful moments through the day. When something grabs my attention and I go, ooh, and I start working on it, I've got to stop and go, was this on the plan today? Let me see. No, okay, this needs to be bumped somewhere else because my like higher priorities are not going to get done if I do this, and these need to be done. So like I have to bring myself back into that place of awareness. And I think that people, especially anyone who's currently listening to this right now, you found Charmaine's podcast for a reason. You're listening to this for a reason. You probably feel like you're going through life sort of like a ping pong ball where you're just getting bounced and ricocheted off of everything that sort of, smacks you throughout the day. And you're just reacting and pivoting and changing direction. And you're just being, pinballed all over the place through the day.
Never feeling like
And
you have a grasp.
yes. And the thing is, you do. You just have to recognize when you are bouncing around, and that moment of awareness of going, because I think everybody notices when they feel like that, but they don't stop and they don't know what to do about it in that moment. It will just amplify itself as frustration. And that's where the, those frustration tipping points come from, where they're like, I just feel like I'm being pulled in too many directions, or they just feel like, they have too much to do and not enough time. But there's really not a whole lot of action steps that people are really equipped with or taught in those moments
And
to be able to bring themselves back down.
Right. And do you notice in those moments, like I've noticed for me, that it feels like if you stop, that things will get worse. Like that's
Yes.
the initial reaction, is that you feel like, oh my God, if I stop, it's going to be like a train colliding. And I can't stop. I have to keep going, because if I don't, at least let me finish this. And it just keeps
Yes,
building.
and that's a whole other conversation. But
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a method that I teach and work with my clients with. And it really is for exactly that, because that moment in time where you go like, wow, this is a lot and I'm feeling really overwhelmed by this. And then that little voice comes in and it tells you like, you can't stop.
You can't, because
That
if you
little,
stop, you're going to
that
mess it all
little
up.
voice is a negative limiting belief that's coming from your nervous system and like your egoic automatic central nervous system response, because it's so used to and thrives in that fight or flight mode. So I do have a technique that I use to teach people how to rewire the parts of their brain so that those negative limiting beliefs can actually leave their brains entirely and reprogram them with new little thoughts that pop into your head in those moments. But just for, for the average person who's, not necessarily working with a mindfulness coach, or maybe they're not working with like a neurotherapist of any kind, or, there's dozens of titles out there for lots of different amazing service providers who sort of do the same thing. They help you, they help you in these states that you're struggling with, right? If you're not currently working, it's like, well, what do you do? Like, figuring out how meditation is going to work for you would be number one, because starting your day and ending your day in a meditative place is the most important step to even knowing what your true north is. Like understanding what your baseline is, like this is when I feel in alignment. Most of us don't have the ability, or haven't had the ability yet, to find that feeling. So we don't know it. So we don't know what we're searching for when we want to feel like we're in alignment. And meditation is the easiest and fastest and most accurate way of finding that state of being, so that then when you move through your day and you have to put a hard stop on your thought process and you deliberately insert some mindfulness, how do you know what mindfulness is in that moment? Well, you're looking for the feeling that you found of being in alignment while you were in a meditative state. So mindfulness and meditation are two completely different things. But in the moment of mindfulness, how do you know what mindfulness feels like if you have never been in a place of like a meditative actual respite? So like energetically and mentally, you are in a space where your thought process has completely slowed itself down and is only present in the moment. So meditation is, and I know people hate to hear this. They hate to hear this, but meditation is the answer. It really, really is.
And
There's,
there's so
another
many
100
different
steps
ways to do
after
it.
that.
Yeah.
But exactly.
Meditation and
So
journaling, I would say, because I
yeah,
do moving meditation, because my brand of brain cannot all the time just sit and be in silence. Sometimes yoga is meditating for me because I'm very present with how my body is feeling, what it's doing, um, how it's responding to certain movements. I'm really in tune with my breath during that time. So you don't have to sit in a crisscross applesauce position and go for like the next 20 minutes. I mean, like seriously,
nope.
Google the multiple ways to meditate and you will be mind blown that it can look however you need it to look for your practice. There's so many different ways for you
Yeah.
to do that.
And
Oh,
you know what? Meditation itself, um, I mean, how do I say this? There are so many fantastic meditation teachers out there, and there's lots of different versions, and there's lots of different views and perspectives of it. But I think in this pursuit of everybody, not everybody, but this influx, like this stage of enlightenment that we're just in as a society,
yes.
there are true experts. And then there are a lot of people who have entered this space. They're working from a place of coaching or mentorship. And I want to make it very clear that I don't necessarily think that one is better than the other. But what I want to do is just make sure that people recognize that you have a whole bunch of different voices that you can choose to follow. But that doesn't mean that everything you read about it or everything you see about it or tune into about it is actually accurate or, the absolute way that it needs to be done. And the more important thing with meditation that I am just really, I really like having these conversations about it right now, because I found that one of the reasons that people are really struggling to learn how to bring meditation and a meditative and mindfulness practice into their lives is because of the way that it's being taught and perceived.
Yeah.
And meditation itself, if you sort of look at the definition, or if you look at like a lot of the more mainstream, what seems like regurgitated information out there, it says that the whole goal is to stop thought process. So people think that when they're meditating, if they're still having conscious thought, that they're not doing it right. And that is false.
Exactly.
Meditation is actually a way for you to be aware of the thoughts that you're having in the moment that you're meditating, and being able to have a non-judgmental perspective of it, where you are observing your thoughts, but you're not having an emotional reaction to them. And there's a massive difference between those two things. And the reason I like to have this conversation is because a lot of people who do have spicy neuro brains, meaning like there's a wild card in there. You don't know what brain you're going to get on any given moment in any given day. Meditation is just really difficult for people who don't have a static and linear access to like brain functionality. So I know a lot of people have tried all these different ways to meditate, and they definitely feel like it doesn't work for them, or they can't do it. And I think that comes down to their expectation of what a meditation is supposed to be. So it's not even about how you're doing your meditation. It's like, well, what is your marker for having successfully meditated? Most people think it's because they're still having thoughts that it didn't work for them. But the whole point is to be able to observe your thoughts from a non-judgmental space and not have emotional reactions to it. And if you can stay in that place long enough, your thoughts will then shift from more of this like physical in your brain generated thought pattern into actual messages that are coming into your conscious awareness from your inner being, like your higher self, the part of you that truly wants to give you the information you're looking for. And then you will feel that place of alignment, because there is every cell in your body that will light itself up with pure positive joy and love and acceptance. And like you will tingle from head to toe in that moment when it resonates with you. But you can't get there without allowing your thoughts to come and go.
Wow.
So that's my big long rant on meditation too, is most people think that they're not good at it. But it's because this marker for success of a meditation
is so unattainable.
It's so unattainable. And I don't know why that's the wording that meditation teachers are using to coach people through meditating.
Because that's what really they read in the one book that they read to do this all in. Oh my goodness. That was a like if I had a bomb, like maybe when I edit, I'll try to find a bomb. Like that was a bomb mic drop. Right? That was a bomb mic drop moment there as you are looking to engage more in this journey with yourself. This is the entire purpose of this show. This is the entire purpose of this particular season, is to help you. Like I use motivation as like the buzzword because everyone's like, oh my God, I need to be motivated. I need to be focused. But in actuality, you don't. It's something else. It's always deeper. It's always deeper with me. It's always going to be deeper. Where can they find you in these social media streets, ma'am?
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find me. My handles are exactly as they sound, thenrghub.com. So it's THENRG-HUB. the .com is actually my website, but for the sake of simplicity for myself, because I can't keep my, handles and passwords straight for the life of me.
No.
I just made them all the same. So, literally if you just type in the NRG-HUB, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or into Google, you're going to find me. And my name is Janessa Talman, and I am the person behind these accounts. And really, those are the three places that people can find me. I'm not spread too thin across the internet world. I just, that's about what I can keep up with: Facebook, Instagram, and then my website.
This has been fabulous. So I want to thank you again for hanging with me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it freed you to see your life a bit differently. Make sure to check out those show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's episode with all the important links and resources. If you want weekly exclusive episodes with me personally, make sure to sign up for my Simplify My Life newsletter. I'd love to know what you enjoyed about this episode, so leave a review to let me know how I can continue to support you. So Mama, I want you to know you're doing much better than you think. You're further than you believe, and you're worthy to have it all. So until next time, stay weird and keep doing you, babe. Coming up next time on the We Ain't Normal show. You say no first because no is easier to come back from than a yes. If you tell someone no, if you say no to a thing, the probability that you would be able to go back and say, you know what, I can fit this in. You know what, I have the space to do this now. I have the bandwidth. Let's do it. Versus if you've already said yes, you discovered that you're tired AF and that you can't get it in. And now you have to go back to this person and go, you know what, I know I promised you X, but now I can't show up. Those odds of making you feel even more disjointed are lower when you say no first. Want more of this episode? Make sure your podcast notifications are on and you're a part of the We Ain't Normal family by going to thecharmedlife.show to get weekly podcast updates and notifications. I'll see you there.